bullets run by man. Oh yeah, lying and cheating and murdering. Won't we ever learn? Scheming on your brother when his back is turned. Oh yeah.
Long time no see, Tony.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, hey, Gabe, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Great.
Hey, Edwin.
Hello.
Oh, they stay the same. Will we cry for social justice? 1962.
That's your music.
Well, it got a little better.
Antonia.
Are you playing that music or is that me?
That's the very end of the service. That's Venice.
Oh, okay. Because I was listening on Facebook and I'm like, I thought I turned it off. Okay.
Hello.
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 Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Dan and Clarita.
Will they stay the same?
Hey, Liz.
Oh, yes, it is. People need a little honesty, a little love. Politicians yelling about what they're gonna do. They talking about freedom, but they're not giving it to you. No. I said Sam Cooke tried to tell us that a change is gonna come someday. But I'm still here away. Hardly a damn thing has been done. Well, ain't it funny? I said it's a shame.
This is Hello, drink.
Okay. Hi, Dan. Hi, Osby. Hi, Yvonne Carmen.
Hey, Tony.
Hi, Carol. Hi, Sue. Sorry, I just when did that was the end of the service. That was Venice. I just here comes
Tony, we cannot see you.
Oh, you can.
I can see you.
We're still waiting.
Hey,
I
Jeff.
can see you.
Osby and Yvonne, we can see you and we can hear you.
Oh, great.
And all I see is Osby when I look.
Oh, you must. We need to change the setting.
Yeah, put here join with video and see.
Hey, Lum, can you hear me?
You hear me?
Hear you.
Yes.
You hear me? Okay.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay.
That's me.
That's good.
I guess we're good to start.
Okay, Anthony. Thank you, brother. I'm going to begin the meeting today. We're going to open the meeting in prayer, and Elaine is going to do that when that time comes. But before we have our formal start, it is my honor and privilege to formally express tremendous thanksgiving and appreciation to Osby and Yvonne McMillan for their tremendous service to us as a church, as they have served as the council chairpeople for these last 18 months. Yvonne came to the position somewhat unwillingly, insofar as she and Osby both expressed that they felt relatively new to the parish and they wanted to be sure that they were not usurping an opportunity that someone else would have liked to have had. But I assured them that everyone in the church loved them so much, and we all thought so highly of them and what they brought to the church, that we really felt that they would be a tremendous team to help us move through this time of transition. And so those of you who are adept at doing your signals, send clapping hands to Osby and to Yvonne for their tremendous work as the chairpersons of the church council.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I wonder if Osby or Yvonne would like to say a few words.
Let me just say this, Pastor. We truly appreciate all the support that we've gotten over the last, I guess it's been close to a year and a half now. And we know we're in the right place right now. And thank you very much for everything.
Thank you, Osby.
And
Yvonne, would you
everyone
like to
in
say?
the church for their support. All the church members for their support also. Thank
Terrific. Thank you very much. At this time, it is also my privilege, therefore, to reintroduce you, to urge your embrace of our dear sister, Antonia Thompson, who has bravely, courageously taken on opportunity to serve as our new council chairperson. When we asked her to take on the position back in the fall, she had a previous commitment, as she's a very busy person, not only busy, but effective. And she was working with another organization, and she had committed to them through June 1st. And so she expressed that she'd love to serve, but she wanted our blessing to begin on June 1st. And so June 1st has come and gone. I've been in touch with Antonia, and she has agreed to take over the reins and to serve as our council chairperson from here forward. She will run today's meeting. Will you all please send her some clapping hands as well? Wonderful, wonderful. So that being said, at this time, I'd like to invite our dear sister Elaine Pope-Joffrian to begin us with a period of devotion, and then Antonia is going to lead the remainder of the meeting. Please, Elaine.
Yes, thank you, Pastor, for asking me to conduct today's devotion. At the end of what I want to share, I will ask you all to join me in prayer. It's interesting that we've had some interesting discussions in our Sunday school about prayer, and so we will do that toward the end. It is June 14th, 2020. And I say that with a great deal of gladness and joy in my heart. And I think you know why. We mark each day and every day, and we should consider that quite a triumph, but thank God for that. And God the Father and the Lord Jesus Christ, grace to you and peace. That is an opening of Paul in Thessalonians. In fact, when I read many of accounts from the New Testament, the disciples greet people that way. And I love the way Paul and the disciples greeted those to whom they spoke and encouraged. Because something just rings real true with me as I read their accounts of discipling other disciples. And I use my spiritual imagination to see gatherings of folks not much unlike the way we're gathered here today. So without music or anything like that, I just wanted to share with you from a place of love and prayer what God has placed on my heart today. If you've lived as many years as well as at least as I have, you come to know transition as a friend, because God always has some place for us and something for us to do. The beauty is that our God never leaves us, never forsakes us, and equips his own for whatever the task. Today, we take note of another transition, and it has been a great joy for me personally since 2016 to have watched the ministry and witness of God and Lord Savior Jesus Christ and Yvonne, Carmen and Osby McMillan. And you've heard it said, some people talk the talk and walk the walk, and I've seen that in both of them. So to both of you from my heart, thank you for the blessing of your servant leadership. God is with you and will always be with you. And I say to you the scripture, press on toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Jesus Christ. And to all of us in a world that seems in constant flux, I say look toward and for the face of God in Jesus Christ in everything. It is God in Jesus who stilled the stormy sea for the disciples because peace was in him, and he will do the same for us. So from God's lips to our ears, as it is recorded in this pericope of Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. So as we thank God for our servant leaders, all of them, let's also be in a deep attitude of prayer. I'm going to ask you to join me wherever you are, whatever you're doing at this time, to lift your heart and your hands to God and repeat with me each time I say this threadbare but powerful petition to God. It doesn't matter whether your microphones are on or muted. Just say this. Breathe on me, O God. Breathe, oh God. Breathe on me, O God.
Breathe
Breathe me, O God. Breathe on us, O God. Breathe on,
oh God.
I pray, dear God, just breathe on me.
Breathe on me.
I pray to God, just breathe
on me.
Thank you. To God be the glory, and let God's church say, Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Elaine. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. And I also want to thank Osby, Yvonne, for all of your work. I know I have big shoes to fill, so I hope everyone will be patient with me. Before we get started, I just want to say a couple of things. I'm very appreciative of Pastor Rob reaching out to me to talk to me. Have always wanted to be more active in the church. The last several years has been tough for me with some other obligations. So I'm very excited to be here with you and to work together as a team to get our church through COVID and get us up and running again. So I'm very excited to be here and work with you all. So we are going to, I assume that the minutes went out. I did not receive a copy of them, but I'm assuming everyone has seen the minutes for the last meeting, or?
We had some challenge getting minutes together for the last meeting. We've asked folks to send in copies, and I will make sure that those minutes are sent out to everybody in written form if they have not been already. I'd like to ask everyone's permission for Tony to tape record today's Zoom meeting. to record the Zoom meeting. That being the case, Eileen will be able to go to the recording and then transcribe the minutes. She's already given consent and willingness to do this. So if it's okay with everybody, Tony's going to begin taping the meeting. Is there anybody that is opposed to that prospect?
It's actually recording.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Recording. Sorry.
Yes, it automatically records at the end. Thank you. And it does make it easy to have it recorded for transcription purpose. So thank you, Tony. All right, so I guess we'll wait for our next meeting to look at we'll approve the last 2 months meeting minutes. So we'll get into reports. So Chair of Trustees, Greg, and I just asked everyone just mute your phones if you're not reporting. That way we can have some background noise.
Good morning, everyone. Just a quick update on trustees. The endowment has done a nice recovery through the last first quarter of this year, although we took a downturn earlier this week. So that's good news because it gives us some flexibility to undertake projects. With regard to Springdale, that's probably the greatest area of activity and concern for the trustees. Our agreement as with Garden Homes Development continues to plod along, although because of coronavirus, the pace of which all the due diligence reports needed to be done has fallen back. The environmental study was done on the Hope Street property, and it was noted that there are 2 existing abandoned oil tanks, which I don't think is a surprise to any of us. But Richard Friedman has asked us to remove those, and indeed at the last trustees meeting on Thursday, we agreed to proceed to remove those tanks. We have 2 bids. They were recommended by our attorney as far as they're good contractors and they've worked well with them before. The cost of that will be probably just north of $11,000. That includes removing 20 cubic yards of potentially contaminated soil. If there is contaminated soil around any of those tanks, there'll be an extra charge to remove that contaminated soil. That being said, Richard Friedman has continued to work to do his due diligence. He has shown me some preliminary architectural and engineering studies. So the project is moving forward from his side. We did hit a little bit of a bump with regard to the title on the property. There's a specific clause that says that the title is conveyed in trust to United Methodist Church of Springdale in perpetuity as long as they remain as a church, or the property to be used as a church. So we are in the process of working with the Attorney General of the state of Connecticut to remove that title restriction. We're hopeful that we will prevail through an administrative decision, which will allow William Tong, the Attorney General, to sign and remove that restriction on the title. If we're not successful through an administrative decision, it does mean that it will have to be argued before a court. And we know because of coronavirus that the courts are closed, which means that things might get prolonged. At this point in time, we still are looking forward to agree to sell the property, and Richard Friedman wants to continue to work along those lines. Other than that, you heard this morning that the trustees agreed to extend the Weir scholarships to the 3 high school graduates, as Pastor Rob said in this morning's service. That's about all I have. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer or try to answer those.
Sure. Greg, I have a couple of questions. So when you say that the title is in the trust, who would the property revert back to if the property is no longer going to be used as a church?
That is not delineated in the title itself. It just said it was given in trust to. And that term, in trust to, has come up before the Attorney General 2 other times in the last 6 years, all by churches who are deciding to sell their properties to non-church entities. And in both of those situations, the title restriction was lifted.
Okay. And then when you talk about the tank, do you have a time frame of how long that would take for that work to get done? Would that impede the closing date or the process of us getting it ready to sell?
I think the closing date is probably going to be not until at the earliest, the fall. We were given 2 estimates to remove the tank from 2 contractors to remove the tanks. And because the trustees didn't have a specific recommendation to go with A or B, and they're within, $100 of each other, which is amazing. I mentioned to the council, who has approached those vendors for estimates, that perhaps we would award the contract to the company that would be most expedient in removing the tanks.
Okay.
So as of now, I haven't heard back from council, but I expect within the week I will. And I anticipate that the work will be done sometime in the next 30 days.
Awesome. Are there any other questions for Greg regarding the trustees report? Great, thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Antonia.
We'll go over to Anthony Harris, give our SPRC report. You're on mute, Anthony. Thank you. You're still on mute, Anthony. You're on your phone, but I still see on your screen a mute. There you go.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. A little technical difficulty. Nothing significant report from our staff parish relations. We have not had any changes, which is good, in our staffing since the pandemic. Each of our staff, each of our staff continues to work diligently within the church, as you guys have known, especially with our pastor, who has not only led us in terms of worship, but has also been our in-house AV director. But nothing really new other than the fact that, and Greg, I don't know, maybe it's a good time to mention this in terms of grant money that we received. We did receive some grant money, and as a part of that grant money, this is some of the government money that was being given to not only businesses, but also nonprofits, including churches. And as a part of that, we will be able to supplement some of the money that your church would have used on salaries to help pay for that. The good news is that it's a total of about $44,000, of which at least 60% of that money can be used toward salaries. So some good news there, if you will, in terms of some salary reduction costs for us for the church.
So,
and
Tony, you want me to just add, it's the SBA's Payroll Protection Program loan. What Tony's referring to is we're hopeful that the $42,000 plus that was awarded to the church will in total be forgiven. It's a 1% loan over the course of 5 years, but a lot of that money can be forgiven, especially if a minimum of 60% is used towards salary-related costs. 40% can be used for rent, mortgage payments, utilities. Considering the church has none of the first 2, it would just be the utilities portion that we would try to get forgiven. And then we can therefore use the balance of the $42,000 to offset some of the payroll costs. The original program was for 8 weeks, ending June 30th. We received the money the Tuesday after Memorial Day. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pastor Rob. Through the efforts of Pastor Rob and First County Bank, which is great. We would not, if the program guidelines had not been modified for forgiveness, we would not have been able to expend that amount by June 30th because our payroll just isn't that high. But the reality is we can choose to go for an extended length of time, which brings us to December 31st, 2020. So we should be able to get forgiveness on all of those monies.
So he mentioned the monies. So the monies are going to the existing salaries that staff has right now, right?
Yeah, the
date
forgiveness, there's a forgiveness application. The two most important things when it comes to payroll is that you maintain through the period the equivalent the same number of full-time equivalents on staff as there were at a look-back time, the first quarter of 2020 or an 8-week period in 2019. Tony and I talked, and there's no consideration for pulling back our staffing. We'll look at the first quarter of 2020 because the time period in 2019 would reflect that we were employing Kyra as an associate pastor. So we don't want to use that as the full-time equivalent that we're going to be applying for forgiveness on. We'll look for the first quarter of 2020. So we should be good.
Okay. Is that all, Anthony? Do you have
Yeah, that's it. I'd just like to know if there are any questions
any questions? Yeah.
or additional questions.
I mean, I would comment that Anthony Edwin, Anthony Parente, Pastor Rob, and my wife Deb, and I were all on a conference call just prior to or just after we had applied for the SBA loan, and we all agreed that we should go forward with it. At this point in time, the withdrawals for the SBA loan are the proceeds from the loan, at least 50%, have been moved over to our normal banking channel through Bank of America, and payroll and expenses associated with that will be tracked through Bank of America.
And I'm sorry, I missed the date that you said you'd have to apply for the forgiveness or get the paperwork in to qualify for that?
The paperwork for the forgiveness, I'm not 100% sure. It is a moving target. The SBA has changed their regulations a number of times since the CARES Act was published, but it looks like we're going to have 10 weeks after either June 30th, if you choose that date and we're not, but 10 weeks after December 31st, 2020, to file a forgiveness application to the lending institution that we received the money from, which would be First County Bank. So sometime in the middle of February, middle of March 2021, we'll have to put that paperwork in place.
And I think what you said is it's not accepted as a forgiveness. It's a 1% for 5-year loan. Correct.
The balance. So if we take out 42 and we get forgiven for 40, there's the $2,000 that's not forgiven reverts to a 1% loan 5 years after the date that you the determination of forgiveness was made. You could, and my wife reminds me that we could give back the $2,000, say, just for instance, the excess amount that's not forgiven, we could pay that back to the bank within a certain period of time and not generate any interest on that amount.
Just to clarify, the amount is $44,200.
Thank you, Pastor.
I'd just like to add that, just reiterate that considerable thanks have to be given to Greg and to Pastor Hewitt for making this happen. This is a very, very big deal, and without them, it just wouldn't have happened. Them driving this forward really with Pastor Hewitt going to First County and Greg with his knowledge. This is a big deal, which is going to keep us afloat for the rest of the year.
Thank you so much for y'all's hard work. That's awesome. That's awesome. So Anthony, are you good? Any other questions for Anthony or any other questions regarding the loan? Okay. So we will have our finance report from Edwin. You're up. I like your headphones.
Yeah, that's just because the kids are eating in the background. It's a little bit noisy. But actually, besides this PPP hopefully fully forgivable loan, that was the update from an operating expense as perspective as well.
Okay, thank you.
Edwin, I
right.
do have a question.
Go ahead. Sure.
Relative to our revenue expenses, are we sort of on target or slightly off target, including or excluding the loan?
I think actually, Lum can jump in if need be. We're slightly off target, but of course with the loan, we're actually better than target at this point.
Why? What can you explain a little more of the off target? And do we normally get the financial reports or no? I don't. That's a question.
Not every month, as far as I'm aware. Maybe on a quarterly basis.
We're slightly off. I want to say that the membership have been either making their weekly offerings via Zelle or have been sending checks directly into the church office. At the time I took a snapshot a week ago, our pace should be 44% of income, and we're about like 41%. So we're off by about 3 percentage points, if you will. But I think by the time we reach the end of this quarter, the mid-year point, we would probably be very close to the 50% mark year to date. But it's the second half that I'm a little concerned with, and we'll see what happens. There are a number of members who make lump sum payments toward the end of the year. So right now we may be, we've drawn down from the trustees fund, the endowment fund, about $75,000 as opposed to a budget of 125. So we'll probably draw most of that down by the third quarter, but then come near November and December, we'll get a number of lump sum contributions. And if we're lucky, we'll become very close to what we had set for our income for the year. So we'll just have to watch it very close from here on in. It's going to be close.
Is there a sense that perhaps, I don't know, if there's a mailing or something that can go out to membership to remind folks to give their weekly, sometimes I collect.
Well, I will be issuing the mid-year report right after the close on June 30th. So as soon as Debbie will get her QuickBooks up to date, by then all her expenditures, and I'll have the final collections for the end of the month of June, I should be able to issue the statements of giving at that point in time, and I'll cover some of that into the cover letter that is going to accompany those statements out, signed by Edwin, myself, and Lisa Flagg.
Can I make a comment, Antonia, on behalf of the trustees and Dwayne's report? Well, I see Liz there. The nursery school did make their second half payment. I'm not sure it's in Lum's numbers, but it was made in the last week to 10 days. I would keep the nursery school and their staff in your prayers, because obviously they have had challenges and will continue to have challenges. They haven't had classes since mid-March. They're not sure about what's going to go forward in the fall, but in good faith, they did pay their second payment for this academic year, or the final second payment for this academic year.
So for this academic year, they're all paid up, and then when do they make the first payment? When they come back in the fall?
No, they make two payments during the year, in June and in December.
June and December.
And we look to the nursery school to come into about $32,000 a year, $16,000, let's say, each quarter, each half year. So I'm looking for, the numbers are not included in the report I just gave. So let's assume that they paid the full amount. It would be about $16,000, I hope. I didn't see the check yet. It's probably in my mailbox. But I'm concerned about the second half of the year. I understand that their enrollment's going to be going down. Probably they're governed by the number of students they can take in. So it's going to be lower than what they would normally have had there not be this pandemic they're dealing with. So it won't be close to 16,000. I don't know what the number will be, but it's something less than the 16,000 for the second half of the year.
I mean, this might be a little off topic. We can probably talk about it offline. Should we start thinking about a contingency plan? I don't know if there's a lease or a contract in place that would get them out if they could not make that payment. Is there language in the contract? I mean, do we have to hold them to it, or are there other ways that we as a church look to make up 16,000 if they can't pay that?
Well, some of your offset's going to be, eventually when we get the PPP loan as a grant, that'll offset some of the expenditures that the 44,200 we're talking about. So that's some relief from that. But I'll be tracking that as we go down the year. We'll see where we are.
And Lum, I would assume, are we in the same situation with Springdale? I mean, that'll go away. I mean, for us from an income basis once we do the sale, but I'm assuming they're also closed because we would have been receiving no, Greg?
No, Springdale Daycare. And I want to acknowledge that Liz is on the executive board of the nursery school, so we should give her a chance to talk because they've had multiple meetings. But with regard to Tony's comment about the baby cottage, which is the daycare facility at Springdale, they were closed about 3 weeks out of the total last 3 months, and they are up fully operational again as of 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
That kept up with their monthly donations for building use. That goes to the Springdale account. That's not reflected in anything that we see through 42 Cross.
Liz, can you give us some feedback?
I can't offer examples, but I know that Dwayne has talked about with the nursery school at our board meetings, because they've requested kind of a prorated building usage fee based on the part of this semester that they have not been present in the building. And I think that Dwayne has talked with the trustees about that. So I don't think we should expect, certainly we shouldn't expect 100% of their usage fee.
Okay, I just need everyone to mute. I don't know if you guys hear that. I have this background noise, so if everyone can try to mute their phone. So I just need clarity because I think I just heard part of the 44,000 for the PPE would cover the nursery school. They weren't.
I would say, let me try to clear it up, Antonia. The PPP loan that we received was for our operational expenses regarding payroll. The nursery school, I encouraged the nursery school to apply under their own guidance for PPP loan money. And in fact, they did receive PPP loan money for both payroll and again, rent and utilities. So if they choose to, they can use some of that money they received to pay, quote unquote, our donation building expenses. Lum's right, they do pay in December and June, and we sort of inherited that payment schedule. I'm not necessarily sure whether they're paying a semester ahead. The June payment is for the fall, or the June payment is for the spring of this year. It's just
for the spring.
So they're paying at the end of the semester. So we're potentially looking at decrease in revenue or a decreased amount to be paid in December for the fall semester of 2020. So we'll be in conversation. Dwayne, Liz, and I think Jackie are our three representatives to the nursery school board of directors. So they're the ones that are going to help make that decision or inform that decision.
Yeah, just look at it that they're on an academic year. So they got all the tuition money in the fall of 2019. So instead of paying us every month all the way along, they negotiated with Dwayne that they would pay at the end of the term rather than the beginning of the term. So in both cases, we're getting the money at the end of their term. So we get it in June and in December. What they pull in January tuition for the second term of 2021, the first term of 2021, we'll get in next year's June.
So I'm just trying to wrap my head around that. I guess that becomes a trustee's decision as to whether or not you would approve a prorated amount for them if they could not make that second payment in December? Because as I'm thinking about hearing, fellowship, at least donations from congregation might be lower than anticipated coming the end of the summer. I just don't want us to be in a bind where would we find ourselves in a bind if we weren't bringing in the money from giving and then they couldn't make their rent? How would that impact our budget?
You're right, Antonia. It is probably a trustees-related discussion since we negotiated the rent in a 5-year sort of a plan. And it would directly affect our operating revenue source if we receive less than 16,000 in December. We just have to plan for that as one tries to forecast what's going to happen with giving.
So maybe if you could just make sure we get an update on that at our next meeting, so we can be a little more proactive. I don't know how we could plan for that, but we can at least have it on our radar that it may be an upcoming issue. Because I'm assuming they're not doing summer camp. We're not doing summer camp. Opening might change a little different as we get to the fall. So we should definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah, the problem they're going to have is that they don't know what the enrollment's going to be, and probably until the first day of school. Having been on the school board myself some time ago, we were always short a little bit in the school that I was working with, and it wasn't until you started getting into the school year then all of a sudden they get a few more transition relocation people, and then they're able to meet the enrollment. So I think that's going to be a hard call getting until sometime in September, October, before you really know what that number is going to be.
Right now, the nursery school is also under the auspices of Office of Early Childhood in Hartford, and they have to respond to their requirements regarding social distancing and such. And right now, our nursery school is only permitted to have 50 students present in the fall. Now that could change, but that's as opposed to the current 84.
Okay.
So that's their requirement right now that they expect to have to meet. They probably will have 50 students, but they cannot have their usual 84.
Right. Okay. And I think we kind of talked about this before, but the sanitization, the cleanliness of the protocol for what the school would have to do, that cost is on us, or is that part of the nursery school? Because they're going to have to do some deep cleaning.
I assume that's nursery school.
It's not part of their rent. I'm just throwing it out there.
I would say going forward, it was a shared cost because we maintained certain portions of it, and they paid for some themselves because they wanted to have a little more control. We do have a couple of proposals, and I think that's part of the later on the agenda with regard to opening. We do have some proposals to go in and do certain things. So it'll be part of that discussion with regard to whose responsibility will it be to incur these additional costs, and whose responsibility financially will it be to provide ongoing extra services.
So, yeah, because again, it's going to impact our budget, depending on what they're going to ask us to do to keep it clean. So long as we're thinking about all those things, that's awesome. Okay. Questions for the finance? That's right. We were just with Edwin. So we're going to go into our ministry area reports. We have evangelism. Is Jackie or Nolan on? Jackie's on the call. Hi, Miss Jackie.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. I don't have any changes. You know, church has been closed. There haven't been any activities going on. I know usually at this time of year we're helping out with graduation and different picnics and barbecues and Father's Day events and things like that. I assume as the church, you know, plans ahead going forward, if we'll be having any services outdoors, that, you know, they'll be able to get us up to date with membership and how we can assist. But for now, nothing to report.
Okay. I see you're outside and I'm like, oh.
I am. It's a beautiful day.
It's a beautiful day outside. So no ideas of stuff that we could do over the summer as far as engagement or evangelism in the community, or?
You know, I think Nolan and I will have to sit down and have a call with Pastor Rob and see how we can assist, since we're not actually present in church, if maybe we can assist with, soup kitchens or any other activities that are going on. But we have not had that meeting or call as yet.
And I know it's tricky as we're going to talk about reopening, but one thought that I had been thinking about, I think I might have mentioned this to Pastor, is using our lawn space and to do some evangelism out there, whether it's signs or things like that, to just thank our first responders or whatever. So I didn't know if thought maybe the kids could work on some projects, posting or something, just to thank the community, or send praise to the community. I don't know. Just those were just some ideas of stuff we could do.
Okay. I mean, I'm available.
I'm going to come sit on your porch.
Pastor. Yeah, okay. I'm available right now.
Okay.
But yeah, I assume that I'll get an email or a phone call with, as assistance is needed. But certainly I can try to brainstorm some things to have activities over the summer. I'm not sure. I'll have to talk to Pastor Rob offline and just see with the soup kitchens and how they're running that. I mean, I know they do have some of those services available. I'm not sure how the congregation feels about going out in the community and doing these things. Is it safe? Is it operating, within all the guidelines? I don't know.
Okay. Or maybe even a food drive or something. I don't know. Well, we'll talk offline.
I'm sure.
As I voluntold you, no. Thank
Not
you.
a problem.
Any questions for evangelism for Jackie?
Yeah, I do. I have a question. John Stoddard here. And I was just curious, perhaps Pastor Rob or Alum, are you aware that those A-frame signs that I made, good grief, 20 years ago, or do they need to be replaced? Or, I just, as opposed to, getting other new signs, I just thought I'd check up on that.
John, we are fully aware of those signs, and we're tremendously appreciative insofar as we know that we have them and the Holy Spirit has been rumbling among us. And I would say within 3 to 4 weeks' time, at the very latest, you will begin to see those signs utilized very busily on our front lawn. There are some people beginning to work on that possibility to get those signs put together. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but there have been some folks who step forward.
I actually have the dimensions of at least one of them already. So how many are there, John?
I think I made 3.
Okay, I have the dimensions of one, and I'll get the dimensions of the other 2, and we're working on it. Plan in progress.
Okay. Well, if you need more, or if those are in disrepair, let me know, and I'll take care of it.
All right.
Funny you should ask, John. I was thinking exactly that. They are kind of falling apart.
Okay.
There you go.
We do need replacements.
And John just retired, everybody. So congratulations, John. Now he's got time.
I'm glad you asked, John. It's not your workshop working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So John, let me get back to you, because if we're going to use something of different dimensions, I would probably need to know as I go forward to get some estimates on some things.
Sure. I think what I need to do is pick up one of those signs, because I don't have any. I just made them. I don't have any dimensions or anything, so I could. I'll pick up one and get some dimensions for you, I guess, and we'll go from there.
Great.
So, Pastor Rob, when can I come by and pick those up?
You can come anytime through the week between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. Monday through Friday.
9 and 1, Monday to Friday. Great. Okay.
The stairwell in the back where the praise band is?
Say again?
The stairwell where the praise band is from the sanctuary? The exit sign on the pulpit side?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Okay.
Go down that stairway is on the bottom of the stairs.
Got it.
Thank you, John, for volunteering and us putting you to work. That's much appreciated.
And John, if you need any assistance, I'm sorry, my husband's pretty handy with laser saws and wood and all that stuff. So if you need any help, he can be available as well.
Well, thank you, Jacqueline. I've never seen a laser saw, so this could be interesting.
Oh, okay.
One thing I'll ask you guys so that we can get attendance, I don't know if someone wrote this down. If you go in the chat box and you type in your name, when Anthony, the recording comes in, he will get a list of everybody that's on the call. So if you want to do it that way, I don't know if someone is taking it, but if you just type your name in the chat box, we will have you recorded for attendance purposes. So no other questions for evangelism. How about worship, Elaine?
Yes, thank you. So the worship team met this past Tuesday, June 9th, as we do every Tuesday, weekly. It's pretty amazing. It's just a beautiful, beautiful team. As you know, you've heard it, you've seen it. The work product is amazing. Much thanks to Gabe and Vanice for the music, and Pastor Rob, the message and the artistry with the entire presentation, and Liz for making sure the banners are up and coordinated. I mean, it's just a wonderful thing to meet as a team. So I can tell you that our pastor has planned wonderful worship and themes upon which to preach that God lays on his heart all the way through July. Is that right, Pastor? Through July. And in his care, even when he might not be in the building, we're going to hear a word, and that's a wonderful thing all the way through July. The second thing is that you just heard that there are a lot of plans in the process. A lot of this planning comes during our worship team. There are some wonderful things that I believe everyone will be happy about, and gatherings. As soon as the details and the flesh is put on those plans, I'm sure they will be announced as wonderful ways to gather again, and gather safely, so we can anticipate that. And I'm going to sneak something in here. It's not even an ad, but I say this because our Sunday school it's just an amazing organic gathering of people. And in many ways, it's worship before worship. And I really mean that. It is a very deep, wonderful study, and we are being illuminated by the study of Acts, catching up with the Spirit. And I believe it's the subtitle, Catching Up with the Spirit, that has captured all of our hearts and engaging us in wonderful dialogue. So while it's a study, it's also a worship in the way that it transforms our minds and our hearts. So I just had to say that, and it's been a joy working with the entire group, and particularly my partner in crime, Tony Parenti. So that's pretty much it for worship.
Okay, Elaine, so for Sunday school, are we offering Sunday school right now?
Adult Sunday school online.
For kids.
Adult Sunday school is online. It's been online since, I guess, the very first week after we closed.
Right. I'm asking, do we offer that for children?
I'm just in the area of the adults at this point. Jackie?
I don't think.
Jacqueline? Yes, what we have done for children is we have sent out various lessons for them over the weeks, not every week. We have also had an online class, or not a class, online visit. They're a little young for a class online. And we've also, I'm also going to send one out this week for them for Father's Day.
Okay. And Jackie, I will share with you, I'm sorry, I didn't see that you were on the call, a link, because whatever was going to be, I was looking at the UMC webpage, and whatever the theme was for this summer's camp, is it Cooksbury? I think it's Cooksbury that does our curriculum. They're offering it for free, the summer curriculum, and you can download all the materials and share. So I will help you with that, because I think that will be very helpful for our kids over the summer.
Is it go ahead.
Yeah,
it's a virtual program?
It's virtual. They have they put up all the lessons and the tapes, everything that would have been used in Sunday school. They're offering it free to the churches.
Yeah, I've seen some things online about it. I was under the impression that our guideline said no vacation Bible school this summer.
No, not physical. It's all for virtual. It's all virtual.
Oh, it's all virtual.
It's all, they're offering it all free, just it's for virtual. That's that. Yeah, I read that too, and I was like, oh, why is that there? And as I looked at it a little bit more, the company, just because of COVID and everything, is offering it. But I'll share the links with you, and we can talk about it a little offline, because I think it'd be nice to put something together to send out. But I'll work with you on that.
Thank you.
Anything else for Lane? We good on worship? Tony?
No, I think that's it.
Oh, okay. I like your screenshot there.
Thanks.
Tony, for discipleship?
Hi. Hello, everyone. Yeah, working with Elaine is wonderful. Never thought it would have been like this, and so thank you so much, Elaine, and thank you, God, for putting me in this place. Yeah, so I have to say, I'm prepared to talk about the Bible study that I'm involved with, but I realize there are other Bible studies. I'm part of the men's group on Tuesday morning as well, but there are other Bible studies. I know, Liz, you have one on Tuesday, and I apologize, I don't know anything about it, and I should have spoken to you about it before this. Did you want to mention what you're covering?
We have not met. We have not met since March.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
You bailed me out. Thank you. And Rob has a, and I go to that occasionally, the Thursday evening. And as I can remember, we're talking about 1 Peter.
We're moved on to Romans. We started Romans this past Thursday evening.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Catching me up. And Lum leads the Tuesday morning, and Lum, correct me if I say anything inaccurately, but Lum is following the lectionary, and he sends us material ahead of time to read and consider before we get into it. But the group is, I want to say, 8 people. And we've been together, I don't even know how long, but it's a close group, and a good conversation. And sometimes we get to the scheduled questions, and sometimes the conversation goes beautifully. Is there anything you want to add, Lum?
No, you pretty much covered it.
Okay, thanks. And I have to say, with the study that we're in now, Acts Catching Up with the Spirit, we started. It's a 6-week course. The topics are what God has done, what God does, which we spoke about today, discernment and change, opposition, saints around the edges, and this changes everything. And what Elaine and I spoke about was, we don't want to squeeze one chapter into each week. So at the very beginning, we expanded it from an hour to an hour and a half. And the participation is wonderful. And we spent, I guess this is the second week we've been talking about what God does. So the conversation flows, and I think the main thing is the Spirit touches us and moves us to say and make comments and realize things, and it's talked through, and it's a good experience, a wonderful experience.
Great, awesome. Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Any questions on discipleship? Okay. And John, how about our report for missions?
I don't see John listed in the participants.
Did he leave? Wasn't he here? Or did I not see that? Okay.
For those of you who don't know, John is a lead salesman in a company that sells personal protective equipment. So you can imagine how very busy he is.
Okay.
In the meantime, he has been doing a tremendous job coordinating our efforts in mission, particularly making sure that we live up and fulfill our commitments to the New Covenant Food Pantry and Soup Kitchen. We've had our volunteers steadily there. Also, we continue to deliver our casseroles. Many thanks to all of the many people who contribute to the 7 casseroles that go out every so often to feed the folks at the New Covenant Soup Kitchen. And most recently, this past week, John established a meeting with the Board of Global Ministry so that we could meet we met 4 missionaries in a Zoom chat so that we could begin to develop an understanding as to whether or not that was something that we wanted to continue to support. We've decided that we would like folks to pray about the possibility of supporting a missionary from Brazil. Recently, we've had a lot of folks from South America, whether it be Peru or Ecuador or Brazil or other places that have been very involved in the life of our church. And there's a program in Brazil called Shade and Sustainable Water Ministry, and we're going to begin to look into that possibility as they have a powerful missionary that we feel like we could get behind. We understand also that there's a great deal of political upheaval and difficulty in Brazil right now. So this we feel is a mission that we can get behind. And so John is beginning to look into that. I just really want to lift John up. He's doing a great job. That being said, John took this position somewhat temporarily for a year or two until someone decides that they might like to take on this role as a leader of the mission area. If there's someone who has a heart for mission and they'd like to do this, please let John know and he'll work with you to facilitate that transition. Thanks, everybody.
So hopefully by the next meeting, you'll have more information, more details about the missionary, what it is, and for us to look to.
Yeah, we'll sure work on that, definitely.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and then I'm assuming, because I was going to ask that about the casseroles, I think that schedule would have been made a long time ago, right? So does that go through the whole summer? Do people need to re-sign up, or are all those slots, are you finding that all the slots are filled even for?
Go ahead, Liz.
I see Liz. Go ahead.
Casserole schedule is made in July for the coming 12 months. Okay. And if anyone's interested in joining that ministry, you should contact Vanessa Carroll, who coordinates it all.
Because I do feel some members want to be more engaged in the church because we haven't been physically there, that they might be willing to sign up for some of these projects that they might not have done before. But now that it's available, and especially where food insecurities are so big in town right now, and all the pantries are low on food, and you know, the schools are doing grab and go. If there's a way that we can encourage some of our members to help out with it, I think we'd get new people doing it that perhaps weren't doing it before. So it's Vanessa, right? She runs that, the casserole?
Casserole salad ministry.
Okay.
I'll just use that as an opportunity to say that Antonia is right. People are looking to get connected, and 3 families that I would lift up with regard to the New Covenant Food Pantry. One of them is our old friends, Angelina and Katie Smith. They've been very active. But also a woman that some of you may have met, her name is Susan Wise, and her son Quincy have been very involved in the New Covenant Food Pantry, as well as an old friend of ours that some of you may know. Her name is Gina Rudolph. These are people who haven't been especially active in the past, and they've gotten very much involved in New Covenant Food Pantry here recently. We express thanks to them.
Great. Okay, Pastor Rob, your report's next.
Okay, I have 2 things to cover. One of them is a real feel-good thing that we can all feel good about, and the other one is a little tentative and challenging. So I'll do the good news first, okay? We have been invited by the community of Stanford into a call to action to sign on to a document that is being spread throughout the community of Stanford that will enable us to really work together as a community to refute this lamentable violence that has become a part of the system of our society. And so essentially what we're being asked to do as a collective of Stanford-based human service and faith-based organizations is to, 1, engage national experts to work with each leadership team to identify, discuss, and confront institutionalized racism. 2, train 100% of our staff in anti-racism curriculum. 3, to work to eradicate policies and practices in our areas that contribute to systematic racism, and confront injustices when we encounter them in order to ensure we are building an equitable and loving community here in Stamford. Now, I know based on who we are as a church, who you've demonstrated to me that you are, that this is something that we all feel good about. Is there anyone who is in the least bit opposed to our signing on to this Stamford agreement, this call to action?
And can I just add a little bit to that?
Please, please do.
So I don't know if some of you know, I work for the mayor's office and I run a restorative justice project. And the letter is coming, was written by about 6 nonprofits that are in town. And the United Way is distributing and managing the list that is asking all, as Pastor said, faith-based nonprofits and others to join this letter as a call to action of how Stamford can make our community much more restorative and responsive to the things that are going on in our country. There are direct asks specifically to the mayor's office and then to Stamford Public Schools to try to change some policies and procedures that they have with dates for them to meet those. And I can drop it in the chat box for people to see. So the goal is that we as a community, and I know our church has hosted Undoing Racism and other conversations about, to me as an agency, it's a really good thing to hold people accountable. How that looks, how our church is holding accountable, I think we figure out what that looks like. But I do think when I look at United Methodist churches and the statements and purposes that they have put out as far as condoning any type of racism, I think it's a really good letter and is very, touches all the bases that we need as a church, need to touch and have frank conversations about. So I think it's a great thing. I will say that I work for the mayor and the mayor has not signed this because it is a direct ask to him. So I think he and his staff are taking some time to figure out where they can identify places within the city that they want to work on and then get back to the group. But I think the last time I looked, there are about 15 agencies that have signed on, and other churches have signed on to be part of it. But let me find it too so I can give you guys a copy.
We'll make sure that one of these copies gets out to everybody, Antonia.
I think you sent it out though, right? I think you did.
I'm not sure that I did or not, but we will certainly make sure. Is everyone in agreement? Can we have a motion in a second to go ahead with this? I'm seeking a motion.
So
Okay,
moved.
Liz gives us a motion. Somebody give us a second.
So the motion is for the United Methodist Church to sign the document that is being distributed by United Way as a call to action for Stamford, right? Is that our motion that you're
Yes,
giving the
ma'am.
thumbs up, Liz? Is there a second to that?
Second.
I second, and then
Is that you, Joe?
That was me.
That was Joe Drago seconded.
Is there any further discussion or clarity? I see someone wants the link in the chat
Yeah,
box.
we'll certainly send the link out to everybody.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so is anybody opposed to this motion? So I guess it passes. Is that okay,
Let me catch
Antonia?
up to you, Pastor Rob. I'm looking at my thing. I think
Okay.
I don't have everyone on my screen, but I think, okay, I don't see any opposers. Okay, perfect.
Okay. The second issue that I need to consider with you today is our quote unquote return to worship. You know, there's a tremendous compelling presentation. I don't know if any of you have taken opportunity yet to view the bishop's worship service that he set up for today. If you haven't had opportunity to do that, it's going to be presented on live stream on our website today at 5 o'clock, and then will be included in past services in our past services section. But as that service opens, there's a very beautiful image of a beautiful church, and the roof of the church just opens, and suddenly there are no more walls. And that's an image of what has happened to us in light of the coronavirus and with all of the work that's been done with live streaming and things of that nature. So we've never really left. We've not stopped. We've not closed. And so in some ways, reopening is somewhat of a fallacy. That's why I always put it in quotes. Nevertheless, there is a sense in which we need to get back to some degree to business as usual in that we haven't been coming together for worship. We did 2 types of surveys of the congregation. A number of our leaders called people on the phone to ask them for their subjective opinions about what their feelings were with regard to the prospect of quote unquote reopening. We also sent out a more objective survey, which 52 people as of Saturday filled out the survey. In response to this survey, based on the 3 main questions. First question, would you return to worship services inside the church if both were professionally cleaned and certified? Worship would not include physical contact, hymn singing, praise band, or choir, Holy Communion fans, or fellowship hour. Mask would be mandatory. 30% of people said that they would, yes, return to worship under those circumstances. And 69.2% said, no, I would not return to worship inside. The second question was, would you attend an outdoor worship service on the front lawn where we can spread out on blankets and celebrate with singing, but masks and social distancing would still be maintained? 69.8%, curiously enough, said, yes, I would attend an outdoor worship service. 30.2% said, no, I would not attend worship service. And then the third question was, given that live streaming on Saturdays at 5 p.m. and at Sunday at 10:30 a.m. via our website and Facebook page will continue indefinitely, and we will have to maintain safety guidelines, do you think it's important to gather for worship in person prior to September? 33% said, yes, I think it's important to gather for worship service in person prior to September. And 66.7% said, no, I don't think it's important to gather for worship service in person prior to September. In the comments that we received, the general tenor of the comments is such that it would be really great if we could all get together, because there are many of us that miss seeing one another's faces and things of that nature. But I feel confident in saying that most people are very comfortable with the prospect of meeting outside. They don't feel that it's absolutely necessary that we get inside. And if you speak to them a little bit about, you know, why it's difficult to get inside and some of the challenges that that causes for us as a church, I think most people are inclined to say, yeah, let's do outside and put off the idea of getting inside until the fall when we're kind of forced by the weather to do that. I want to stop right here and allow opportunity for others, maybe 2 or 3 other people, to say what they might like to say. And then I want to ask you all to join me in kind of developing a consensus for going forward. Are there 2 or 3 folks that might like to add to what I've said thus far about the surveys?
I know I did talk to a couple of people, and it was the same. What's reflected in the survey was that they would be willing to do an outdoor service, but they weren't in a rush to get back physically inside the building, because they had a lot of concerns, whether health, some people's being comfortable, safety, but also felt not just with church, but everything that they were going, whether they were in the grocery store or other things in their daily life, they still had some hesitation and just thought it was a little too soon. So I think to the people that I had spoken to, it came similar to what the survey reflected. And I totally think outside we have a nice, beautiful property that we can utilize to do some really interesting and fun stuff outside. So those are my thoughts.
Does anybody have a contrary position that suggests that they would really like to get inside the church? Antonio, are you seeing any responses?
This is Lumley talking. I just want to add something. I'm one of your senior citizens. I'm over 80, and like you, was over 80. And I would say I'm in the real high risk. We're both in the high risk, real high risk category. Certainly, we're concerned about going indoors under the current circumstances until we get probably a vaccine. I know I've spoken to Jean Quarter as well. She has the same similar concern because she sees her dad a lot. Our concern is if I bring home a germ and I give it on to like you, she's a goner. And Jean Quarter kind of said the same thing with respect to her father. So those of us who are really high risk would really be very cautious and probably not attend either. But certainly outdoors is better, but probably we would be very cautious as well because of the gathering of a large group of people.
Okay, Lum. Before I move forward, I'd just like to offer opportunity for one other person to speak.
I had a thought or a concern because our Bible study is now taking on like a new life and a really great momentum. And I kind of feel that whether service is inside or outside, that it might interfere with that because we go from 9 to 10:30. There wouldn't be time for us to get to church if we're still doing our Zoom Bible studies. So I guess logistically, I'm guessing that could be worked out with some changing in schedules or timing, or maybe Bible study will be in the lawn before the church. I don't know, but just logistically, I would be concerned about that.
Sharon,
It can
thank
be
you very
worked out.
much. I really want to lift you up, and I think we all want to thank you for sharing your grandchildren's presentation of We Are the World the other day. And I want to take this opportunity to tell everybody that Sharon's grandson's name is Colton, not Cotton. There was a spelling mistake that caused me to say Cotton. It's Colton, but we're so thankful, Sharon.
Thank you.
So, having heard that response, to expedite matters as quickly as I can, I have developed a proposal for summer worship and conscientious return to worship. I think one of the big things that we can do as a church is model the fact that, first of all, we were never closed. And second of all, we don't have to physically come together and put one another in danger in order for us to manifest the strength of the Christian gospel. That being the case, live streaming will be provided. I offer this as a proposal. Live streaming will be provided every Saturday evening at 5 and every Sunday morning at 10:30. Bible study will continue to be provided every Thursday evening at 7 and Sunday morning at 9. All other programs that are currently meeting, such as men's group, youth group, and other things, will continue to meet at their own discretion within the confines of what is safe practice. In addition to that schedule, the following worship opportunities would be provided pending fulfillment of appropriate parameters for certification for outdoor worship, and then presumably at a later date, indoor worship by the district superintendent. So the first time that we would likely get together for gathered worship would be outdoors on July 12th with a rain date of July 19th. Outdoor worship from the patio of the lounge. Participants would be asked to register beforehand, a limit of 60 total. Bring blankets and lawn chairs to spread out on the grassy area around the patio. Mask and social distancing to be mandatory. Special music and preaching would be featured. On July 26th, with a rain date of August 2nd, 6:30 p.m. special outdoor presentation of the Weir Scholarship on live stream. Family members of graduate presenters and additional participants, limit of 60, asked to bring blankets and lawn chairs to spread out on the grassy area. Special music, prayers, and testimony by not only the Weir Scholarship recipients, but also by some of our college graduates would be great. Then I'm happy to say that we've already agreed that on August 2nd, there's going to be an outdoor concert featuring the vocal tones of our dear sister, Venice Thomas, the wonderful leadership of our dear brother, Dr. Gabe Schufert, and perhaps some special guests, maybe Aaron Hall, and maybe Tico Torres, and Oatmeal. On the drums. We're looking for a really great outdoor concert. We'd be limited to about 100 people on the lawn. Social distancing would be featured, but it would be out on the front lawn of the church. We'd need a group of people to get together to figure out the parameters, but that's the tentative goal. August 22nd, we would like to have some sort of event for children if it's at all possible, and I would work with Jackie, with Maura, and with others on whether or not this was something that could possibly happen. September 13th would be an outdoor worship opportunity as well. And then this proposal establishes October 4th as the earliest possible date that we would begin to go indoors for worship, as that's World Communion Sunday. Of course, that's all tentative based on what happens in the world around us. I'm sad to say that in terms of indoor gathered Sunday school, it looks like, and I'm talking about children, it looks like maybe November 29th with the beginning of Advent might be the best time for us to shoot to do that. Again, depending on what happens with regard to a possible resurgence of the coronavirus in the fall. We want to not only keep the children safe, we also need to be mindful of the fact that children cannot always relegate themselves to observe social distancing. And so we have to be careful with that. But we're going to make every effort to try to embrace the children in the weeks ahead in new and distinct ways. Is there anybody that is opposed to that proposal as it's there presented? And I could send it out for people to take a look at before we ultimately agree on that proposal. But is there anybody that's adamantly opposed to it?
I have a question, Pastor.
Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering what, I wasn't sure what you were planning, if you had any plans for Sunday school during the summer in this proposal?
Well, yes. I believe that we need to do some creative things to begin to embrace the young people. And so perhaps you and I, as a start, could get together and talk about what we see going forward. And then we could include other functionary people along the way so that we could begin to provide something. I was thinking this morning, even just an opportunity to sit together and read Bible stories would be better than nothing. But likelihood is we can do something considerably more than that. But I'd like to sit down with you and talk about that.
Pastor, I was going to ask if you could send those dates and times, because even as Sharon was talking about, if we need to make some adjustments, we would like to be able to do that based on whatever worship services you're planning in their time.
Yes, so that you know, the only date that is firmly fixed of all of those dates is August 2nd. I've had that agreed upon by Venice Thomas and the other potential performers in that event. All the other dates would be open to your suggestion. I'm just offering this as a solid way forward for us to begin to get behind, and then we'd have to hold on to it loosely, as we have to hold on to everything pretty loosely these days.
Pastor Rob, is
Thank
this
you.
what you're reading? Is that the document that you sent out for a proposal?
I just sent it to 3 or 4 people. I sent it to the leadership team. I sent it to Anthony Harris, Greg Chan, the 2 lay leaders.
I know,
and to
but can
you,
we,
Antonia.
I was going to share that because that is pretty much what you just talked about. Is that okay to share that?
Yes, as long as I've not said anything that's been especially offensive to anybody. I don't want to step out in this direction if ultimately there's somebody that really feels that we're not hearing them.
And I'm assuming part of our certification is also going to include outdoor services, correct?
Yes, there are 14 points that need to be checked off that are going to be sent out early this week by the conference to have approval for outdoor worship. So we'll not only need to get certification to do indoor worship, we're going to need to get certification to do outdoor worship. And quite honestly, that's the reason for the July 12th start date as opposed to the end of June, is that it's going to take us some time to get behind this. And we've got to deal with our graduates, and we've got to deal with July 4th weekend. So when we consider all that, we're all ready to July 12th.
Okay. I did share that that proposal. Does anyone have further discussion or concerns about the outline of those dates and those activities?
Well, I do. I'd like to just see the proposal. I mean, if we need to, do some changes with what we're doing in the morning, I'd like to see that proposal.
Yeah, I dropped it in the chat box. If you go in there, you can download it and look. I think it's pretty much what Pastor Rob was just.
Could you possibly just attach it to an email?
Sure.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
So that you know, Elaine, I believe that Sunday morning Bible study at 9 a.m. is one of the most outstanding things that is happening in the life of our church right now. So I would do everything I possibly could to avoid interrupting that in any way that I can. I was talking with some other clergy about the value of Zoom worship over and against the live stream. And one of the things they talked about was the opportunity for worship to be dialogical, for people to communicate with one another. But really, our form of worship doesn't need to be dialogical if we have that Bible study. You spoke about it being kind of the worship before worship. If people want to get together for dialogue, that Bible study is an outstanding opportunity to do that in the spirit of Jesus Christ. And then the live streams are an opportunity for us to provide the more traditional kind of monological approach. It's not intended to be fully that way. I hope that you're feeling that I'm kind of meeting people at the point of their need. Nevertheless, that Bible study that you do is absolutely indispensable.
And I don't see a conflict with the Bible study. Most of everything here is.
Well, the conflict would be, as Sharon had articulated, logistically being able to get to an outdoor worship in time. So
we would make sure that those worship services were late. Later in the day.
We have no problem flexing, but we just wanted to be sure that we are able to sort of plan. But I'd still appreciate just seeing the proposal.
So I don't need full approval for this proposal. What I need really today is for people to generally agree that we are all in agreement with a conscientious return to worship, meaning that we're going to stay outside until the weather forces us inside. And then when it comes time to go inside, we're going to be very fastidious about making sure that we have those approvals by the district superintendent and that we're doing everything that we can to keep people safe. And that even being said, even then, it's going to be important for those that are in high-risk groups to be very sensible for themselves and to make sure that they are being very selective about those things that they choose to participate in. Are we generally agreed on that?
Yeah.
Is there anybody, and this is the last time I'll say it, forgive me, is there anybody that really feels that this is letting them down?
Maybe one quick question. Will the restrooms be available during the outside services?
Yeah, when I sent out this proposal to the five that I sent it to, and you'll see it when you see it, I pointed out specifically that is going to be the one area that we're going to have to be very careful of. We're going to have someone minding a queue for the bathrooms, and then we'll have to establish a little bit of a routine for cleaning the high touch areas in between opportunities that people use the facility.
So is the ask, Pastor, that we are to look this proposal over and think about it, to make the decision that we are going to open, or is it that we're tied to these exact dates and so forth, or is that just a framework that you're giving?
It's just a framework that I'm giving, not looking to tie anybody to dates, just the overall spirit of the document.
So are there any that are on the call that are opposed to us opening up the church, not the sanctuary, but the grounds of the church, to have some type of services or activities in some capacity over the summer? Are there anyone disagree with that? Okay, so that's one.
I don't disagree, but we still don't have the certification document from the bishop. Is that correct?
That's correct. So I think what we're trying.
Early to say that, or?
All I'm saying, all we're agreeing to do is to have this conversation that we would like to open up the church in some capacity. It's all going to be contingent on whether or not we can pass the accreditation. I mean, if we can't pass that accreditation, then it's a moot point, right? Because we won't be able to do anything. We can't even sit outside. So it's all contingent on whether we can pass accreditation, and then two, the availability of how we manage these events, right? So I think what Pastor's asking is just, is there a consensus that we try to make the church available, if we can, available to our membership in our community over the summer? So if there's any, is there anyone that just feels that we absolutely should not do that?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you. So again, Pastor, we do, and you said that there was a call today, but what I want to ask you is, what is our timeline for that certification?
Well, we'll receive that additional documentation this week from the bishop with regard to certifying us for outdoors, and we'll begin to get on that so that we are ready to do that by July 12th, so that we're ready to begin outdoor worship by July 12th. That's the time frame that I'm asserting.
But the certification will be contingent on us checking off those boxes as far as the deep cleaning, all of those things.
I'm strictly talking about outdoor worship. And so if it were outdoor worship, it would not need to be the deep cleaning and so forth, except we'd need to pay special attention to the bathroom areas. Right.
Okay. I couldn't remember in that checklist what, if any, were things that you had to do for outside, but you're saying it's not as intense as if we were opening the indoor building.
Correct.
I'm sorry, I dropped off for technical difficulties, but I've got a comment. While this is centered around our use of the facility and our worship use of the facility, our building is utilized by other organizations and other entities also. So even though we're focusing in on a to be determined certification for outdoor, we have received guidance from the New York Annual Conference about certification for reopening, that we, I think, as a church leadership needs to start the process of checking off those lists or that worksheet to make sure that we're covered. We were just advised on Thursday that Ableist, which is a renter of the facility, is looking to reconvene their program starting July 15th. Whether we can accommodate and open the building to allow them to do so is going to be a question as we go forward. We certainly know, I see Liz dropped off the call too. We certainly know that the nursery school is going to need to get into the building before September if in fact they're going to have classes in September if they're going to open up. And then we have other organizations like AA that are looking for us for guidance with regard to how and when they can start to come into the building to hold their AA meetings. And the one that we have on Saturday hosts 40 to 50 people. So they would fall into phase 1, phase 2 from the governor. But we're going to have to do some work to make sure that those areas are quote unquote accessible to those outside users sooner than later.
So the question on that, or the comment I have is, so do we then just focus in those parts of the building if we do take a position to allow them to do so? And I'm not saying that we're taking that position, but if we do, then we would have to just clean the nursery school area, the whatever rooms are being utilized. Is that correct? And the bathrooms, obviously.
I think that's right. I think the guidance we got from the bishop is specifically geared towards reopening the church for church services. There is a section in there that says opening for rental outside groups, so I have to look at that again. But certainly trustees will take the lead on it, but it's going to need a coordinated effort with the council and other leadership to make sure that we understand what our existing staff can accomplish, what we might have to do to bring some in. We have a couple of quotes because it seems like the bishop's guidance says, at the very least, before the building is open, we need to have it, quote unquote, professionally cleaned. There are cleaning teams for ongoing maintenance and sanitization, but that one, needs to be open professionally. We've got to engage somebody to come in and do some of that, including shampooing the carpets and, spraying down things. I think the first bid we got was for just over $11,000. Is that not right, Joe and John? You were at the meeting.
2 quotes for about 11, 12, and then we have the smaller quote. But yes, correct.
And there was a portion of that was attributed to the nursery school section itself. So
and one quote that's in addition to, I think, the nursery school.
That's one of those discussions we're going to have to deal with the nursery school and say, in order for us to get the building ready for you to open, we're going to need to expend some money. Is that going to be a shared cost? Is that going to be solely borne by FUMC?
So what's our process to take a position, given that we are taking, what I'm hearing, a position that we're not going to open up for church services, indoor church services, to potentially early fall. So what is our position, or what's the process to get to a position to decide whether we allow third party or groups to come into the building? I mean, we have to, I guess the council has to make that determination before the trustees, I think, go forward and start. We got to get back to, I guess we owe a response to the 3 quotes we received. I know one of the companies is being very persistent on Clement to get it scheduled or not. So I think we need to come to determination in our overall position in terms of what we do with third parties.
But we are, can I just ask a point of clarity here, Greg? So with Ableist, is that our lease? Is that a lease that we have with them for that space? So I think contractually, I don't think we can come in and say we're not, I don't know. I don't think we can come in and say you cannot come, because like if we have an obligation to those leases and to the contracts of the third parties that are in the building, it seems to me that we got to clean the building. Like we have to get this certification sooner than later.
I take the position, I think the trustees have taken that position also, that we do have an obligation. We don't talk about it. Antonia, I'll just give you a little heads up. We don't talk about it as a lease or a renter, because as a nonprofit, we take a donation for building use.
I hear you. I hear you.
You hear us, okay? So
Yeah,
the donation for building use is based on a document that says your $650 a month allows you to X, Y, and Z. I think there's an opportunity for us to negotiate with something like Ableist to say, you know, you've advised us that you're ready to get your program, you're following protocol, but your program could start up on July 15th. They gave us 5 weeks notice that that's their intent. I think it behooves us to come up with a plan to either say, we'll do what we have to allow you to gain access on July 15th, or in fact, we need to make sure that we have checked our boxes and gotten certification so the building won't be open until August 1st or August 15th, and realize that is a discussion that I think we can have with them. But Joe's right. He's pushing the point that we need to have a plan so that we have something down the road that we can point to before myself or a representative of the trustees can talk to Ableist.
But if it's a usage agreement as opposed to the lease, can we, as Joe was saying, can we make part of the building, like, you know what, we got the fellowship hall down in the basement. That is a very big room. That's one room that we can clean, you know, a couple of times, and then AA's down there also. They have a kitchen. Like, can we make everyone be segregated to one part of the building that makes it easiest for us to maintain the cleanliness and the sterilization of that spot, instead of having to go, you know, through the vestibule and all? Like, I think Lum made the point of people walking all around the church. Do we have that flexibility to say that?
I think we do. I think we do. I think we need to determine what sections or segments of the building they may use, and we need to make sure that we've got our guidelines in place with regard to infection control, sanitization for those bathrooms or those hallways or those doors or whatever we have to do. So I think Ableist is going to be fairly easy to accommodate because they don't roam the building. I think AA, you know, we should be able to accommodate them if we ask them to park over on the Lauren Taylor side and just go in and out that entrance and use the lower level, and that's only once a week. So clean the bathrooms, that type of thing. We probably have to lock the kitchen up so they don't have access to that, so we don't have to worry about cleaning it. The greater concern is going to be, you know, as we talk about worship not occurring inside until September, October, the nursery school uses much more of the building than we would. It's going to be difficult to limit them, I think. I don't know.
Right, for the fall, right? Is what that
for the
time
fall,
frame,
but I think that the nursery school their staff's going to want to start to come in sometime in August to get things going. They haven't been. They actually, I think they are in. Are they not, Pastor Rob? Maybe like you and Ellen. They're sort of one person
yes,
at a time.
they've been in doing their thing throughout the last month or so. Yes. May I interject? I would like to suggest that we use this present fervency with regard to which we're having this conversation as impetus to encourage people that have an interest in leading this effort to be a part of a leadership team. I've also asked people to sign up to be on action teams. And so what I'd like to do is to express thanks to everybody for coming out to church council meeting, and to say that there is going to be a team of leaders that get together within the next 10 days to discuss leadership of this opening from here forward. And so if this is a conversation that compels you, I want to encourage you to call Elaine. If you're not already an officer, like chair of SBRC, chair of trustees, you're kind of on the hook as far as this is concerned. We've got to have these conversations. But if you're someone who's not in a position of leadership, if you'd please call Elaine and indicate your desire to be a part of this, Eileen, be a part of this leadership team. We'll put together a meeting to meet either 10 days from today or thereafter, so that we have ample notice to everybody, and we're going to sit down, hash through all of these issues, get to the bottom of it, and then begin to motivate action teams to begin to hack away at that punch list. Does that sound acceptable to everybody?
Well, I hear what you're saying, Pastor Rob. I just need clarity on the money, because that's what I'm kind of is ringing in my head. If we're talking about $11,000 to clean the church, to get it ready for our third-party leases or to open the church, if I'm hearing that the nursery school may not have enough money in the fall as far as enrollment to make their payment as that second payment, So I'm just hearing that we might be stuck in the fall if we're not thinking about this now. Am I some?
Well, we
confused
definitely have to
about
be
the-
thinking about it now. That's why I'm suggesting that we meet as quickly as we possibly can. with
Yeah, I don't
leadership.
think 10 days is, what I was gonna say is I don't think waiting 10 days, I think this group has to make a decision about, do we go forward on these bids that we have for the cleaning? And if we do go forward on those bids for the cleaning, how do we make sure that our third parties are using part of the building or all of the building?
That's why I say I don't think that's a decision for the church council to make. I think that's a decision
Oh, okay, all
for
right,
us
then
to
I'll stop
defer.
talking. I thought,
No, what I mean,
okay,
I appreciate your leadership. All I'm suggesting is that I think that the leadership team is given authority to go ahead and make those determinations if we all agree that we're going to expedite the cleaning facility to get everybody in as soon as possible with the discretion of that leadership team. Is that fair?
okay, as long as you said it's not on this, okay, perfect.
Yeah. And don't, Antonia, I expect that you'll be part of that conversation, okay? So in other words, we're going to schedule
Guess
a
what,
meeting.
Antonio? You're on the team, baby.
I'm there, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, the leaders that are representative leaders, you're unfortunately on the hook, or fortunately, whichever the case may be. I'm just going to be looking for additional leaders. We'll set a date, we'll get together, we'll hash this out, and then we'll get after it.
Don't
Is that acceptable?
Don't get me wrong, Antonia. The quote for $11,000, or it's not an insignificant amount of money. We're going to have to do that to open the church. It's just at what schedule do we decide we're going to open that? What we're going to engage those contractors to come do that work. Obviously we'd like to be as close as possible to when we actually use the facility, but we may have to accelerate that cleaning to accommodate third-party use.
Okay, perfect.
Excellent.
So do we have go ahead.
Just please trust that in the next week, I will be tying the ends together in terms of making this all go forward, looking to the representative leaders to join me and new leaders to come on board so that we can make the ultimate decisions. And then I will be working to get these action teams together.
Does anyone else have any final discussions on this? Can we establish our next meeting date? I don't know. Is there a set day that we do always one Sunday a month? I don't know.
One date that I would suggest, we had a date scheduled for July 12th, but I'm looking at maybe August 16th as our next date. Presuming that we're also going to have to meet for leadership of this endeavor to get us back in the building.
I think a lot depends on the decision of the team that you're talking about, what the schedule is and whether or not we need to vote on that to move forward. Do we need the council approval on that to move forward? Whatever we decide.
It's my feeling, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we've determined in conversation that we need to move forward. We need to keep these. We need to keep these folks that we are responsible to contractually in business. And so I don't know that it's a matter that we can even vote on. It's something we have to do. We need to leave it to the discretion of the leadership team to make sure that we do whatever we have to do in order to get that accomplished. Now, if there's going to be an expenditure that's beyond anything that we've talked about today, then certainly I think we might need to bring that to the church council. But otherwise, I think that the leadership team would be working within the purview of the church council, given that we all have a reality of the understanding that this needs to happen. So my suggestion would be that we meet through July as leadership, and I would compel everybody that has any interest or desire to help out to do that, and that we meet again as a church council on August 16th.
We do the 9th.
August 9th?
Yeah.
Yes. Is that okay with everybody?
August 9th.
I really want to express thanks and appreciation again to Yvonne and Osby for having transitioned us to this place. I want to thank Tony very much for her hard work and taking on this new opportunity. And I really want to thank each and every person that's hung with us today, staying in this meeting, as it's been very challenging, but we've gotten a great deal accomplished. Our dear sister Jacqueline Simmons will close us in worship when you're ready, Antonia.
Yes, I'm ready. Jackie?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the beauty of the season. We thank you for the gathering that we have here, come together to do the work that will build up your kingdom. We ask you, dear Lord, that in the midst of all the challenges of these days, for your continued blessings of love, care, and peace. Thank you for showering down your blessings on us so bountifully every day. Bless all the members who have attended this meeting this afternoon. Help us to keep our eyes on the prize, the uplift of your kingdom. Today, dear Lord, our hearts are filled with special thanksgiving for our dear friends and colleagues, Yvonne and Osby. Lord, we thank you for them. We thank you for their continued service, their love, care, and professionalism. Thank you, dear Lord. We wish them all the best as they go forward. Lord, we also thank you for our incoming chair of this committee, Antonia. Thank you, dear Lord, for her willingness to share her talents and her gifts with this group and to help us to continue on the road that you have in front of us. And lastly, Lord, I'd like to ask a special blessing and thanks to our dear friend Elaine. Thank you, dear Lord, for her faith, her diligence, and her obedience in answering your call. We will miss her as she moves to the ministry as a licensed pastor at the Mount Kisco United Methodist. We ask you, Lord, to keep your hand on her and bless her as she goes forth obeying your word. And we thank you, dear Lord, for all that you've done for us and all that's yet to come. Encourage us in our journey, dear Lord, that we may have the strength and the resolve to continue this journey and to never leave your presence. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jackie. Okay, so do I hear we will adjourn?
So move.
So moved. Thank you.
Great
There's
job,
a-
Antonia.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Antonia.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great, blessed week. Stay happy and healthy, folks.
You too.
Take care.
You
Bye.
too.
Bye.
There's two.